Hi, I'm Stewart Spinks and welcome to episode 358 of my podcast, Beekeeping Short and Sweet. Are your bees starving? Reports across the UK of colonies under attack from wasps and running out of food have been frequent recently. I hope to explain how to get some food into them simply and without fuss. Also, part 2 of my Honeybee integrated health management system. Beekeeping Short and Sweet, a beekeeping podcast for the inquisitive beekeeper with a short attention span. A beekeeper, in fact, just like me. This week's podcast is brought to you, in part, by Hive Multi-Guard. So,
when you need a little peace of mind that your bees are safe from dangers of all kind, pesticides, hornets, wasps and mice are no match for Hive. The Hive Multi-Guard is the best one in town. Keeps your bees safe all year round. The ultimate solution has been found. It's Hive.
The Hive Multi-Guard fits nearly all beehives and makes beekeeping much easier. Hive.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the podcast. It's great to be back and sharing more of my beekeeping world with you. Hopefully there'll be something here this week to pique your interest and maybe, just maybe, help you become a more confident and able beekeeper. I have to say, it is sweltering in my office today. It's Friday afternoon, it's another blisteringly hot day, and just trying to keep out of the sun hasn't kept the temperature down. No fan, no air conditioning, but here we are, and I'm up with the podcast again. First up today, these reports about wasps and starving colonies. I had an email just this past week, in fact it was today, Friday, from the Animal and Plant Health Agency here in the UK. That's the overarching authority that governs the National Bee Unit. The email detailed colonies being short of food and being pestered and in some cases lost because of the wasp attacks. I think I've mentioned before, if you're taking honey off your hives, be absolutely sure to check that you've left them plenty to survive. It's all too easy to take off supers without checking to see if they have enough food in the brood box. And remember, large colonies require large amounts of food. Get out there to check your bees just as soon as you can and take some syrup or fondant with you. In an emergency, you could simply take a bag of granulated sugar and put that on the hive. Honestly though, if you can grab a bag of sugar, you can grab a bottle of water and mix the two together. It will help the bees get feeding a lot quicker, believe me. Pop your feeder onto the hive, pour in a litre of water, empty a bag of sugar into it, mix it thoroughly, and let the bees feed. It won't be exactly one-to-one, but if the bees are starving, I'm sure they won't mind. Don't get hung up on the detail, weighing out exact grams, ounces, millilitres and such. Just grab some sugar and water, throw it in a bottle, shake it up, and feed it to the bees. I had a recent question regarding the potential issues, actually, of feeding honeybees granulated sugar produced using sugar beet rather than cane sugar. It's true, it can cause dysentery sometimes and can be particularly difficult if the bees can't get out flying. Right now, that's not a problem. My advice would be grab whatever granulated sugar you have and feed it if it's needed. But please, only white sugar, no dark brown sugar, and certainly not molasses. Thinking about the wasps, close down entrances to a minimum if you have a wasp problem, even if you're treating your bees. There's no point religiously following instructions regarding treatments if all you're doing is allowing hundreds of wasps to rob and destroy your colony. Otherwise, maintain strong, healthy colonies, and the wasps will simply fade away from your apiaries, and you'll wonder what all the fuss is about. Talking of healthy colonies brings me nicely on to the continuing topic of my Honeybee integrated health management system, or H.I.M.S as I'm calling it. This in the absence of anything better, anything more succinct by way of acronyms. Please, everyone, anyone, if you can think of something easy to name this system, just drop me an email. I'd love to hear from you. We covered personal hygiene, in beekeeping terms, and apiary hygiene last week. This week, let's continue by looking at hive hygiene, pest control, and disease management. And next week, we can finish off with workshop and honey room hygiene, concluding with other stuff, as I mentioned. Hive hygiene, what does that mean? Well, think of it as trying to maintain your hives in the condition that they were in on the day they were originally purchased. That's going to stress a few memory cells, of course, but can you remember back to that day? The very first brand new beehive you ever bought. Now, I know a lot of us have bought second-hand equipment, and that's all about cleaning, and we'll talk about that later. But just remember that new hive, the clean wood, or in my case, clean polystyrene, the fresh smell of the cedar. There's nothing quite like it, to be honest. I have experienced that, and the lovely colours of that unadulterated fresh wood. Okay, reminiscing over, bees installed 10 years later, and it's not looking anything close to its original condition. What I'm suggesting is this: as you rotate or replace equipment, keep it as clean as you possibly can. Now, I know you're not going to maintain that original colour, but what I would recommend is a spring clean for your hives. I do, or at least try to do this, with as many hives as I possibly can each spring. A replacement clean floor, entrance block, brood box, crime board, and sometimes roof. Now, I know you're going to need to obtain additional equipment for this, but it is all part of keeping our bees as healthy as possible. Over winter, I'll look to clean as much equipment as we have that's empty and dirty. That is, for me, a scrape to get rid of wax and propolis, a wash in relatively warm, hot-ish, soapy washing soda water for our poly hives, a scorch with a flame for wooden hives if you have them, and finally a spray with a 10% bleach solution and a little warm spring sunshine to dry and air them, and the bleach really doesn't cause the bees any problems at all. In the spring, as it warms up and first inspections are happening, the hive in question is moved from its stand. A replacement floor, entrance and brood box is placed on the stand, and as the inspection is carried out, the frames are moved from the old dirty box into the fresh, clean replacement box. It's surprising how easy the frames suddenly move on the runners in a clean brood box. No more struggling with wax and propolis blocking the frames from moving. The inspection complete, a clean crime board or cover board is fitted, and the old roof, unless it needs cleaning or renovating, can go back on top. Job done. It is that simple. Let's think about frames, and more importantly, the comb held within those frames. We should all be replacing 2 as a minimum, but I would recommend 3 or even 4 frames every year. Comb becomes used and tired, dirty, and it harbours pests and disease. This old comb also reduces the available space for the queen to lay eggs in. It reduces the space available for workers to store food in, and therefore contributes to a reduction in available space, so the colony tends towards early swarming as they grow quickly into spring. Thinking about the season progressing, we also need to consider all of the other equipment we might need. A queen excluder, several supers, hopefully. If things get a little cooler, we might just need a feeder, but they all need to be clean and ready to go. If you only have 1 or 2 hives, management of this equipment is pretty straightforward. But as you start to grow and develop your apiaries, you may find out you have 5 or 6 hives in it, or maybe even more. And this is where having a plan to manage equipment can save you an awful lot of pain. Wherever possible, I would, up to maybe a dozen hives, keep equipment separate for each hive. So have a dedicated feeder for each hive, keep supers for each specific hive. 3 or 4 would be great, but if only 2, make sure that you can extract the honey and get those supers back on the same hive quickly. The biggest challenge we all have, myself included, is that when our knowledge and experience grows and develops, we tend to start taking risks, and that can lead to a catastrophe. Here's a fictional scenario. Honestly, it is fictional, and long may it stay so, but I have heard of this scenario popping up time and time again, so it's not too far from fact. Let's say I have a dozen hives in my apiary. They're all fantastic. I've been keeping bees for around 5 years, and I've taken education seriously. I know what to look for when it comes to disease and pests, and I'm actually pretty confident as a beekeeper. So far, so good. It's been a reasonable season. Most of the colonies are doing fine. The nectar flow has been pretty good in the spring, and so I get supers on all of the hives. I've run out of supers. All the colonies have filled the 2 supers that I've put on them, some faster than others, but they're ready to come off. I strip them off, extract, and put them back on the hives. The trouble is, I'm busy holding down a proper job, and time is short, so rather than putting the supers back on their individual hives, that is, the hive the super was taken from, I'm just plonking the supers back on whatever hive is next in line. All goes well, the season continues, and most of the colonies are doing really well. A mixed bag as normal, some will always do better than others. The summer nectar flow is over, the supers come off again, and I follow the same routine. It's now late summer, time for treatments. I inspect my bees and notice what appears to be a possible serious infection. EFB, European foul brood. I find it in one colony for sure. It's just come out of nowhere, it seems. I call in the bee inspector. We leave the infected colony until last. The problem is, it appears to have been infected for some time, perhaps in spring. Only just, but infected it was. When I took the supers off, I extracted the honey and put the supers back on different hives. The bee inspector's looking concerned. I'm told I have 3 colonies with European foul brood, not 1. I'm asked when I last did a disease inspection. What's one of those, I ask? It appears I've spread the disease by putting an infected super from the first colony onto 2 other hives. When I put the supers back on the hives in late spring, I'm devastated, and I don't want to tell my beekeeper friends how foolish I've been. Now, I know this is a fictitious scenario, but believe me, it happens, and it happens all the time. Each inspection should be a disease inspection, but let me rephrase that in my new terminology. Each inspection should be a health inspection. I can't stress this enough. Look at your bees, look at your brood. Do they look okay? More than that, do they look in good health? Fluffy, hair-covered adult bees. Remember, some older bees lose their hairs, so don't panic too soon. In fact, I'm just left scratching my head with the same problem, so we best move on from that. Check your larvae. You've seen me shake bees off frames. There's no need to do this in a nectar flow. You don't want nectar going everywhere, so just touch the bees gently with your fingertips and they will move to let you look at the brood. Pearly white larvae curled in the bottom of the cell in a neat little C shape. Look closely enough and you'll see a segmentation pattern to the larvae. Perfect. Get to know and identify what healthy looks like in your colonies, and anything else will jump out at you. Even single cells of not healthy will call out to you. I guarantee it. If the fictitiously infected colony from the spring had been health checked, the disease might have been spotted earlier. If the supers had been numbered to identify which hive they had come from and been replaced on that specific hive, there may have only been one infected colony. Still an infection, but the beekeeper is controlling what's happening. For the most part, beekeepers are not to blame for a colony becoming infected with EFB or AFB, European foul brood or American foul brood, but they are most definitely to blame for several colonies in an apiary becoming infected over a season, with a few notable exceptions. This is because we don't generally check for disease, or do we? We share frames of brood between colonies, we move supers around from hive to hive without a care in the world, and it all comes back to bite us in the behind, as Forrest Gump might say. I may be a little bit off track here, but I'm really passionate about getting this message across. Check for healthy bees all the time and every time that you're in your hives. Now, of course, the stakes are raised with the more beehives that you have. It's simply not possible, I would suggest, for large commercial operations to practice the same processes of adding boxes back onto the hive from whence they came. And the bigger the outfit, the more likely there may well be seasonal beekeepers helping out, all with differing levels of best practice, knowledge and experience. That is a challenge for the companies, and sometimes it goes wrong. Personally, I sit comfortably at the lower end of the production numbers in terms of a commercial outfit and can still manage our risk adequately. I do this by watching every colony for signs of good health, and so far, touch wood, I appear to have managed okay. There's always one or two low-risk diseases that pop in, chalk brood, bald brood, sack brood, for instance, but I accept that and I look to improve my processes as we move forward. I don't always put supers back onto the colony it was taken from, and that is undoubtedly a risk. I accept that and look to improve my processes as we move forward and try to get better at what I'm doing. Another element of risk is moving brood frames between colonies in the spring to, for instance, equalise the number of sealed brood frames in each colony and attempt to create similar sized colonies for a spring crop of honey perhaps. Here again, and you can probably already see, there's a risk. If I haven't been thorough with my health checks, I could easily and inadvertently move a frame of infected larvae full of AFB or EFB from a diseased colony into a healthy colony. And the frame doesn't need to be full of that disease. Just one or two cells could potentially be enough. What about making up nukes or splits or queen rearing? Every step of the way needs a process of monitoring for health. Only use frames from a healthy colony and be sure you know what healthy looks like. If in doubt, just don't do it and go and read up a little bit more on pests and diseases. I touched on cleaning tools between inspections last week and I'm reiterating that today. That wash bucket is your friend. Washing soda cleans hive tools really well, keeps everything from rusting and makes it easier to begin the next hive inspection because you're not clogged up with wax and propolis from the previous hive. I'm not so sure about the spread of disease from a hive tool. I don't think there would be enough infected material on a hive tool to get a colony started with it, but why take the risk? Wash your hive tools, wash your gloves, and at the end of the session, wash your smoker. Follow these simple, easy to perform steps, and I guarantee you a healthy apiary. Probably. Well, that's it for this week. For all of you who haven't yet signed up to my Patreon page, I, together with Steph, have been creating beekeeping content for many years now. And if you're looking for some straightforward, down-to-earth tips and techniques, help and advice, then do take a look at my Patreon page. We have over 1,600 individual beekeeping posts, videos and podcasts filled with useful and timely help and advice. My approach is pragmatic and calm, sometimes entertaining, but always with help and support for beekeepers at the heart of what I do. I keep my videos short and concise wherever possible. No waffle, no flannel, just honest beekeeping advice from years of keeping bees. Take a look and join me for the new 2025 beekeeping season. It'll cost you less than a jar of honey. Head over to Google and search for Patreon and the Norfolk Honey Company.